So, before we recite a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, we invoke the auspiciousness by chanting a special mantra. And let me ask you first, how many of you here for the very first time? Oh, many of you, welcome. Thank you for coming. And thanks for visiting us repeatedly, those who are coming again and again. We are so happy to have you here. So in our ISKCON temples, every day in the morning we have discussions on Shastras or scriptures. And today we will speak from Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're going to first recite the verse, then we will try to understand the meanings of the verse and how we can apply in our lives. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So you're reading from Canto 2, Chapter 9, titled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version, Text 11. Shama Vadata Satapatra Lochana Vishanga Bastraha Suruchi Shupasheshaha Sarva Chatur Bhahava Unmishan Mani Praveka Nishka Abharna Su Varchasaha Samavatata Satapatra Lochana Vishanga Vastraha Suruchaha Shupasheshaha Sarve Chatur Bhava Unmishan Mani Praveka Nishka Abharana Suvarchasaha. Anybody like to chant?
Shama Vajata Satapatra Lochana
Sama Vajata Satapatra Lochana
Vishanga Vastraha Surucha Supeshtaha Sarve Chatur Bhava Unmishan Mani Rave Kanishka Varana Suvarchasaha
Shimavadata Shastapatra Lochana Vishanga Vastra Surucha Supesashaha
Vishanga Vastra Surucha Supesheshaha Chatur Mishanmani Ladies, Shama Vadata Satapatra Lochana Sarve Chatur Bhava Unmishan Mani Ladies, Shama Vadata Satapatra Lochana Vishanga Basra Surya Supasheshaha Shama Vachata Satapatra Lochana Shangalavastra Shashashaha Sharve Chatur Bahava Unmishan Mani Chikanishkama Varna Shubharacha Saha. So, word by word translation. Shama, the sky bluish. Vadataha, glowing. Sata patra, lotus flower. Lochanaha, eyes. Ishanga, yellowish. Vastraha, clothing. Suruchiha, greatly attractive. Shubhasheshaha, growing youthful. Sarve, all of them. Chatur, four. Baha, hands. Unmishan, rising luster. Mani, pearls. Praveka, superior quality. Nishka Abharanaha, ornamental medallions. Shubharachasaha, effulgent. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are described as having a glowing sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers. Their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features very attractive. They are just the age of growing youths. They all have 4 hands. They are all nicely decorated with pearl necklaces with ornamental medallions, and they all appear to be effulgent. Let's repeat the translation. The inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are described as having a glowing sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers. Their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features very attractive. They are just the age of growing youths. They all have 4 hands. They are all nicely decorated with pearls necklaces with ornamental medallions, and they all appear to be effulgent. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The inhabitants in Vaikuntha Loka are all personalities with spiritual bodily features, not to be found in the material world. We can find the descriptions in the revealed scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam. Impersonal descriptions of transcendence in the scriptures indicate that the bodily features in Vaikuntha Loka are never to be seen in any part of the universe. As there are different bodily features in different places of a particular planet, or as there are different bodily features between bodies in different planets, similarly, the bodily features of the inhabitants in Vaikuntha Loka are completely different from those in the material universe. For example, the 4 hands are distinct from the 2 hands in this material world. Om Jnanatirindharsya Gananjana Shalakaya Chapshura Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, in this particular section of Srimad Bhagavatam, we read the descriptions of spiritual kingdom, the Vaikuntha Loka, and about the residents of Vaikuntha Loka. Those who do not know about Srimad Bhagavatam is a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta basically means, Veda means knowledge, Anta is the end of knowledge, or the conclusion of Vedic knowledge, by Srila Vyasadeva. In his maturity, he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam has 12 cantos, and today we are reading from second canto. So you may question, why are we reading from Srimad Bhagavatam? There are other tons of scriptures. Those who come from, shall I say, Indian diaspora, Indian background, we know there are hundreds of scriptures, right? Upanishads, Puranas, Vedas, this scripture, that Shastra. But why are we reading from Srimad Bhagavatam? So, we all know Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord Shri Krishna himself to his friend Arjuna. Bhagavad Gita was given as an active form of instruction for us to understand who we are, what is the nature of the material world, who is God, and what is our relationship. And Srimad Bhagavatam goes step farther to describe how we can serve God and how we can know about Him more, and how we can reestablish our relationship, eternal relationship we have with Him. So Srimad Bhagavatam is considered Amala Purana. That is described by our acharyas. Acharyas basically means teachers. In our tradition, it says Srimad Bhagavatam Amala Puranam. So it is spotless. So whatever we read in Srimad Bhagavatam, it will give us, it will bring us closer to God. It is also called Galitam Phalam, meaning that it is the ripened fruit, the essence of all Vedas. It is the topmost in a way that can waken not only our dormant love of God and prepare us for the next life, we can even relish the transcendental experience and bliss in this world while we are here. So, in the previous two verses, we read the description of Vaikuntha Loka, what Vaikuntha Loka looks like, and what is it made of. So, to understand Vaikuntha Loka, or I should rather say, when we understand what this material world, it will be easier for us to understand also Vaikuntha Loka, because sometimes we perceive things by our experience, when things are tangible, we feel connected, we can relate to. So, how can we understand Vaikuntha Loka if we do not know this material world? So, we'll try to understand the next half an hour or so. I'll try to explain the differences of the Vaikuntha and the spiritual world, and how we can prepare ourselves so that by the end of our life, we can go to Vaikuntha Loka, which is considered our spiritual kingdom, which is made of Satchit and Ananda, whereas material world is temporary. Vaikuntha Loka is permanent or eternal. So in the material world, we are always bound by what we call three modes of material nature, three gunas: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Whereas in spiritual world, there is an absence of passion and ignorance. We read in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, Sattam rajas tamaiti gnai pakriti sambhavava nivadhanti mahabhavo dehi dehinam avabhayam. So, this material world, satta rajas tamaiti, this tamaiti, gnai pakriti sambhavava nivadhanti mahabhavo dehi dehinam. This is very interesting. Dehi means who we are, our identity as a soul. It's made of Sat, Chit and Ananda, as we said earlier, eternity, bliss and full of knowledge. Dehi Dehinam, when Dehi, the soul, accepts a Deha like what we have today, that goes to different stages of life, such as Janma, Mritu, Jara, Badhi. Janma, birth, death, old age and diseases. So we have to go through that. There is no option, because this is the nature of the material world. Is also described as Dukhalaya Ashashyatam. What it means is that despite we don't want to have any difficulties or sufferings, and yet we go through that. Why is it so? Because that's the nature of the material world. So let's try to understand, just like when there is a light, when there is a darkness, there is also light. And how can you understand and there is a darkness? Because when there is the absence of life. Similarly, the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. So this is temporary. So there got to be something permanent as well. And how can he be sure about it? For instance, why are we as living entities, regardless of our social, geo-economical, political status, we all try to live for a long time. Nobody wants to live for a few years. We are doing everything we can to extend the duration of our life. Is it not so? Yeah? So why are we trying to extend our life? Any thoughts? Yes, Prabhu.
One could be fear of the unknown.
Thank you. Fear of unknown or uncertainty. That's a good point. Anybody else? That's a good point too. So, what I was looking for is...
Point, we can't hear.
Sorry?
What was the point? The listening audience can't hear, and I'm right behind her. I couldn't hear. Could you repeat what she said?
She said, because of our attachment to the material body. So, the point is that because we, the living entities, are eternal, so we are not happy with the temporary things. Our intrinsic nature, it's Sat and Chit and Ananda. We're full of bliss and full of knowledge. We're always seeking for pleasure and happiness. And so therefore, we are not happy with the death, or we are always afraid of death because we think what might happen. So we're always in anxiety of unknown, as Prabhu mentioned. Is actually in Srimad Bhagavatam, we see there's a beautiful description about it. It's that one of the verses spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, it said, living entities are sada samadvigna udvigna. We are always in anxiety, thinking what can happen, because it's padam idbabi padam na tesham. Every step there is something unknown, some kind of danger. Like for instance, a couple of days ago we have heard that there's a new variant of COVID found in some part of Africa, southern African countries, and whole world is in fear. Some countries are banning even flights or any transportation or connection with those countries, because we are all trying to protect ourselves and protect our societies. And yet we are constantly encountering such unpleasant or unwanted situations. So the question should be that how can we avoid, how can we overcome such situations and prepare ourselves for eternal life? So the spiritual kingdom is eternal, is called Vaikuntha, Vai means without, and kunta means anxiety. So spiritual world or Vaikuntha is place where there is no anxiety, there is no suffering, there is no birth, old age, disease, and death. Actually, the real disease is not the COVID or cancer. These are symptoms of real disease, which is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. So Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures such as Bhagavatam enlighten us how we can overcome these situations and our goal and how we can achieve our goals. So if we understand this place is not our permanent place, this is our temporary place, and we have eternal home, and we need to go there, and then we need to do something. Just like for this lifetime, to protect ourselves, we have so many insurance policies, correct? Health insurance, dental, vision, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and whatnot. So we have a lot of insurance coverages to protect ourselves. So how about our next life? Because death can come any moment, correct? Can anybody be sure when it will come? Nobody can be sure, right? It can come any moment. Because we all have 7 days to live, Monday to Sunday, correct? Well, the question is whether it's today or tomorrow. Yeah? So scriptures offer us such perspective that we need to prepare. We need to create a policy, create an insurance policy for our next life. Because the goal of life is Krishna Prema. Sometimes we hear in the Vedas, we heard that there are 4 kinds of, the goal: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Actually, there is more than that. So there is a 5th goal that is called prema, that is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All 3, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, are temporary, really. That moksha is eternal, although moksha is liberation, that we get liberated from this material consciousness and we go back to spiritual kingdom where we don't have to experience what we experience here. But there's more than that we can experience that in Vaikuntha Loka or spiritual kingdom, such as Goloka Vrindavan. In this regard, there's a beautiful verse we find that goes like this: Aradha Bhagavan Brajashitanaya Tadham Vrindavanam. So Aradha Bhagavan, our worshipable Lord, or what we consider the goal of life, is to Krishna Prema. Aradha Bhagavan Brajashitanaya Tadham Vrindavanam. He lives in spiritual kingdom, Golok Vrindavan. And it is important to understand, in spiritual kingdom, there are 6 dimensions. Vaikuntha is one of them. There is also something called Golok Vrindavan. So, Golok Vrindavan, which is considered the highest for the devotees, because this is where we can exchange different rasas, all the rasas, such as Madhurya rasa, then servantship, and all the 5 rasas we can experience. Whereas in other planets of spiritual kingdom, such as Vaikuntha, we do not experience all the rasas, but you can experience 2.5, 3 rasas, so to say. So our acharyas give us that the purpose of human life is to attain Krishna Prem, or the love of Godhead. And how to do that? And we do that through the process of bhakti. And those who do not know or wonder sometimes, what we all hear the bhakti. What is bhakti? Correct? We all hear in Hare Krishna saying too much bhakti. What does it mean? And have you ever thought about it? And those who are here for the first time, what's your understanding or view of bhakti? What do you think the bhaktas do? Anybody? What is the bhakta's main business?
Devotional service.
What does it mean?
To develop our love for God.
Thank you. So developing our love for God. Then the next question would be, how can we develop our love for God? And so in our Shastras, it's described that there are different activities we can do to prepare ourselves for our next life and develop our love for God. In Chaitanya Charitamrita and other scriptures that we follow, it said, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while he was instructing to one of his disciples, he first listed 59 of them. Then he came to the last 5. Then he said, Shakal Shradhana Shrestha E Pancha Anga. These 5 activities are the topmost one can do to please the Supreme Lord and cultivate one's dormant love for God. He said, these 5 activities are Bhagavat Shravan, Sadhu Sangha, Namakirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, Mathura Vas, and Srimurti Shraddhaya Shravan. So the first one is said, Sadhu Sangha, to associate with the devotees, just like you have come here today. And you go to the local temples to associate with saintly persons. Then we develop urge to, to go back to spiritual world and be in a mode of goodness. Then Bhagavad Shravan, to regularly hear about the scriptures such as Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Shravan. Then Namakirtan, to chant the glories and chant the holy names of the Lord. Mathuravas, to live in a place where Krishna is in the center of our place. That is actually Vaikuntha. Sometimes we think the Vaikuntha is just a location. Yes, it is a location, a spiritual kingdom, and we can also create Vaikuntha atmosphere at our place. So, and last one, Srimurti Shraddhaya Shravan, to worship the Lord in a deity form. So through this process, we can prepare ourselves. This is our insurance policy for our next life. So we should regularly hear the glories of the Lord. That will purify our hearts, our consciousness, and which is the only requirement, so to say. Our heart must be clean from anarthas, all unwanted things. When it's clean, then we can welcome the Lord in our heart. And at the end of our lives, then we can go back to spiritual kingdom. How many of you want to go back to spiritual kingdom? Almost everybody. So everybody actually wants to go to spiritual kingdom. So to go to spiritual kingdom, we need to do something, because nothing comes free. Just like when you go to university, you don't get your degree just by going there. You need to study hard. You need to go through the exam. Then after your exam, especially if you're in medical or finance field or other field or nursing, you have to go for special, examinations or registration process. So it's really hard work. Nothing comes free. So similarly, to go back to spiritual world, we need to do something. We cannot just simply go, and it's a lifetime preparation. You can't pass your exam unless you study hard regularly. Yeah, you may go do something, if you go week after your examination, but you're not going to get 100%. So similarly, spiritual life is also progression. We have to prepare throughout our lives for the last moment, so that at the end of our life, we can go back to spiritual kingdom. We can see the Vishnu Dutas, Krishna Dutas, who will come with a special aircraft, not United Airways or Southwest. So it's the Vaikuntha planes. And to do that, we need to do something. To have that opportunity, we have to prepare ourselves. So we should make an endeavor for our spiritual growth. We are so busy nowadays, we can say, we don't have time. We have our work, our family life, our kids' education, and all that social obligations, and so we're doing everything. We're devoting most of our times for our maintaining our temporary position. So we should do also something for our eternal life. We should put aside a certain time for spiritual life. Otherwise we may miss the boat, we may miss the plane at the end of our life. We may miss this opportunity that we have. So the acharyas, the sages, they appear again and again. Even Krishna appears again and again to remind us that we need to wake up and prepare ourselves, not just be content in this material world. So let us put aside some of our time every day, whether we are at home or at work or wherever, whatever social status we may have. So put aside some time for our spiritual growth. That way we can be ready. So in this verse we see that in the Vaikuntha planet, the people that have four hands, they are beautiful. It said their eyes resemble lotus flower. Their bodily features are very attractive. So, as I said earlier, because in Vaikuntha Loka there is no Janma, Mrityu and Jara Bhadi, they are not conditioned by the three modes of material nature. So they're very attractive. And in fact, in Vaikuntha Loka, the residents, they have 4 arms. So in a material world, we have 2 arms. So the question is, why in Vaikuntha Loka they have 4 arms and we don't see that in the material world? Any thoughts? Anybody would like to offer something?
Four is better than 2, and you can do more things.
He's very practical. He always gives practical response. Anybody else?
Lord Vishnu has 4 arms in Vaikuntha, and Krishna has 2 arms in Goloka Vrindavan. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I'm not sure why do you need 4? I'm like, you are in that eternal place, and then why do you need 4? And then when I'm listening, we are looking about the eternal place, and then we are still thinking like we need to achieve that, and 4 are good. I probably will never reach there. I'm worried here. Anyway, thank you.
All right. So these are all good perspectives. Actually, it is said in Shastra that there are different kind of muktis, and there are different kinds of forms of the Lord in different planets. So in Vaikuntha planet, Lord Narayan or Vishnu, who has 4 arms, so those who attend Sharupa Mukti, they attend 4 arms. They all look like a Lord. In those are human form in Vaikuntha Loka. Therefore, they all have 4 arms. Whereas in Golok Vrindavan and other Ayodhya or Navadip, there are 2 arms, just like we see in the material world. Because the Lord, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, He is there with the 2 arms. So they're based on different types of muktis or liberation. We attend certain form so that we can exchange with the Lord in a way that is suitable for that particular location. But for devotees, the Hare Krishna devotees or the Vaishnavas, we are not so much concerned whether we have 4 arms or 2 arms, because our main goal is to be with the Lord and serve Him and be there with Him and exchange in a different kind of rasas that He wishes, so to say. And so different spiritual world, there are different rasas, as I said earlier, and this Goloka Vrindavan has the highest. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, rasa is basically means that exchange or love. You can exchange with the Lord. He said that bliss available in Ayodhya is better than that in Vaikuntha, and the bliss in Dwarka is superior to that in Ayodhya, and the bliss of Goloka is the climax of all bliss, is the topmost of all. So in Golok Vrindavan, where the devotees they have two arms, just like here. They relate to Lord with their natural form. Whether actually it is said that all species, including the plants, animals, and human beings, and aquatics, they all are conscious, and then they're conscious and can communicate and relish the transcendental rasa with the Lord. And they're all busy to hear and serve the Lord, because that is the goal of life. And what is it said? It goes like this: Purusha Ramacharitam Prakashaya Anumayam Anusamsaya Param Rajam Karma Bandhir Vimushchite. So when you hear the transcendental Ramacharitam, we hear the glories and the pastimes of the Lord. We are situated where we are not bound by our karma bandhir vimushchite. So we become free from all shall I say, sufferings and anxieties. We are situated on our transcendental platform. So we should prepare. We should, by hearing the glories of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, by chanting His holy names, associating His devotees, hearing about Him, we develop that urge to be there with the Lord and be in a spiritual world, to be with Him and serve Him. That way we can relish and all that, because ultimately this is our goal, because this is what our acharyas said. Yeah? So, because this is what we see in Srimad Bhagavatam also. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Amalam Prema Pramartha Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatra Da Saraha Na Paraha. So that's the goal of life, that to achieve that prema, to be with the Lord. And let's start with one step at a time by regularly chanting His names, hearing His pastimes, and associating with devotees. So we are also supposed to cover that verse 12 today. I'll just quickly read the translation of the text 12. Some of the effulgent like corals, diamonds in complexion, and have garlands on their heads, blooming like lotus flowers, and some wear earrings. It has a very short purport. There are inhabitants who have attained the liberation of Sarupa, or possessing bodily features like those of the personality of Godhead. The Vidurya diamond is specially meant for the personality of Godhead, but one who achieves the liberation of bodily quality with the Lord is specially favored with such diamonds on his body. So once we go there in the spiritual kingdom, when you're especially favored, you will have some of those jewels. So be prepared and get ready for that. So it's 8:48. We have 12 minutes. If you have any questions or comments or reflection, we can spend next 10 minutes or so before we go for prasadam. I'll stop here. If anybody has any questions or comments or reflection. Yes, Machi.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a very nice class. Could you just explain a little bit, speak about preparation for going back to Godhead? Could you explain a little bit more how we can do that in the devotional service, when we think about devotional service, how we can think of Krishna all the time? Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So devotional service starts with hearing, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smarana. We need to hear. So there are different ways we can hear. We can hear from the saintly persons, spiritual masters, and we can also hear by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. and Bhagavad Gita. So once we hear, we will remember at the time of death. So as we know, whatever we remember at the time of death, we will attain in our next life without fail. So if we remember Krishna, we'll go back to Krishna planet or Krishna Loka. And if we do not hear throughout our life, we can remember. Sometimes, have you ever, sometimes when we read things once or twice, we can remember. But if we hear regularly, again and again, there's a good chance that we will remember, correct? That's why this process is, we have to repeat ourselves. This is sadhana. Sadhana means that we are regulated in a way that every day we put aside a certain time for our spiritual activities. Then otherwise we will miss that chance. We won't remember. Just think about it. Do you remember what you have read in your 5th grade or 10th grade? No. Why is it so? Because we are not repeatedly reviewing that, isn't it? But the teachers, those who teach in 10th grade, although they passed their 10th grade while ago, they can remember and repeat because they review regularly. So similarly, as a practitioners of Bhakti Yoga, we have to practice regularly. We have to hear regularly. Then we'll remember at the end of our life. And Krishna will give us intelligence and He'll save us at the time of death. And it starts with hearing, Shravanam Kirtanam, then we'll have Smaranam, and all other devotional service that we can do, like Bhagavad Shravan, Mathurabhas, Srimati Swadhyaya Shravan, and Namikirtan. Did I answer your question, Mataji? Thank you.
So, is there a way where we can, as you said, it's kind of renewing our insurance policy for the other loka. Is there a way where we can renew our insurance policy while fulfilling our worldly needs and worldly responsibilities as well?
Absolutely. Very good question. So,
Can you repeat the question?
the question is that can we prepare ourselves a policy for a spiritual world without, at the same time, performing our duties and responsibilities we have? Is that correct, Mataji?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, you can. So we are not suggesting any way, shape, form that you need to give up your duty or dharma, because we all have our responsibilities, and we understand that everything we do, there is purpose. Whether it's taking care of our families, our own selves. We should not give up that. We should continue, but we should develop a consciousness that I'm doing everything as a service. And whether it's taking care of my families or my job, I'm doing it as a service and giving up that mentality that I am the bhogi, aham karta, aham bhogi. No, that's not who we are. We're doing it for the Supreme Lord, because otherwise we're deluded. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasa aham kara vimudhatma kartahamiti marnete. We think we are the actual doers. We are doing things for our pleasure. No, we are doing everything for the pleasure of the Lord. I'm in this position today by the Lord's mercy. Let me perform my duties that we have. At the same time, we know that these duties are temporary, because it's dukhalaya ashasatam. We need to, at the end of our life, we have to give up. So we need to also put aside for our next life. We need to put aside our time for the next life. So you can do both things simultaneously, just like a rail track. Because otherwise, if you give things up immaturely, you won't be able to success. You won't be able to get success in a long term. It will be falguna vairagya, false renunciation. So we are not talking about falguna vairagya. We are talking ukta vairagya, because it is basically engaging everything in the service of the Lord. And what is it? There is a beautiful verse. Onna vilasita sunnam. Giving up all other desires, but to please the Supreme Lord. And then our duties our responsibilities will become spiritual. You're going to spiritualize your activities. Just like a train track, the two things can go simultaneously. There will be harmony, right? If one track is off, there will be accident, because we are not. Most of us, we are not Paramahamsas.
So also in the same context, is there a thought process which you will suggest which makes you more aligned to the God and keeps you away from the fear of losing your dear ones to death?
Sure. Actually, Krishna said that in Bhagavad Gita. He said, Sarva Ghuyam Tamam Ghuyam Shunme Param Vacha. After explaining different stages of, shall I say, the activities, he said, then he goes on, Sarva Ghuyam Tamam Ghuyam. Now I'm going to give you the ultimate, the topmost, the secret of all, by which you can become free from all anxiety. And you can, then he said, Man mana bhava mad bhakta madhyaji mam namaskara. Mama vaisase sattante pratijana priyashime. When you become his devotees, you'll become very dear to him. Then the ultimate thing he said, Sarva dhanman paritarja mam ekam sharanam raja. Aham tamam sarva papyebhyo mukshasami masachaha. Then, so the result of being a devotee and giving up our mentality of being an enjoyer, and the sense that, and understanding and realizing that everything we are doing for the pleasure of the Lord will become sarva papibhyo mukshasami masachaha. He'll free us from all anxieties. Masachaha. And he said, do not fear, have your faith. And we see that Sanjay at the end of Bhagavad Gita, he also confirms that. He said, Yatra Geshwara Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanurdhara, Tatara Sri Vijaya Bhutri, Dhruva Natir Matir Mamaha. At the end, if you have that mentality, if you put Krishna in your life, then you'll have Vijaya Bhutir. There the victory is guaranteed. That is, that getting free ourselves from all these fearful outcomes, we will be free, and there will be victory. Of this, there is no doubt. And that's why Krishna said, do not fear. Have faith in Krishna's words, because Krishna will free us and free us from all our sinful reactions and give us the transcendental bliss of his association.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anybody else? It's almost 9. Okay. If not, with that, we'll end our this morning discussion. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we'll serve prasadam. I believe it will be served in behind Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasana in the Prasadam Hall, Community Hall? Okay, in the Community Hall. It's under the lodge. When you go outside, you will see a restaurant sign. Then you walk on the right side. Then you will see entrance door on the left. Then you can go to the Community Hall. And there will be Prasadam served for everybody. So thank you, everyone, for your kind participation. Srila Prabhupada ki. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
His Grace Vrindavan